Today we're going to be refuting one of Testify's new videos, but we're going to do something special today. We're going to have Testify refute Testify. So Testify is about to bring an argument from silence, from history, and I'm going to let him respond to himself. Then afterwards, I'll give my own response.
Islam, we're told, is much older than Muhammad. Quran 16:36 says, "We surely sent a messenger to every community, saying, worship Allah and shun false gods." Quran 40:78 says, "We already sent messengers before you," referring to Muhammad. "We have told you the stories of some of them, while others we have not. It was not for any messenger to bring a sign without Allah's permission." As we look around the world and through history, we should expect to find groups of people who Muslims can identify as true followers of Allah. They wouldn't necessarily be called Muslims, and they might not believe everything that Muhammad taught, but they should be identifiable as true followers of Allah. So, let's set our Muslim friends a challenge. We'll specify a time period and a region, and ask them to identify the true followers of Allah. As long as there is enough historical information available, this shouldn't be very difficult. The challenge: the period of history, 40 AD to 600 AD. The region, literally anywhere on planet Earth. And go! Given those limits, identify a true follower of God. We've provided more than 5 centuries in the entire Earth, so Muslims, this should be super easy for you. But here's the problem. You're not going to find a single soul. Not one. Zilch.
So basically Testify is utilizing an argument from silence. But as I'll soon show with Testify's own video response, he doesn't find arguments from silence to be convincing. So this is his double standards showing evidently so when it comes to Islam.
In either view, he would have mentioned it. Both of these scholars are using textbook examples of the argument from silence. In logic, an argument from silence is a pattern of reasoning in which the failure to mention a fact or event in a known source is used to draw an inference, usually to the conclusion that the supposed fact is false or that the supposed event didn't actually happen. It's not always necessarily fallacious, but at best it's a pretty precarious way to argue.
So we're gonna have Sheikh Testify here refute his own argument, inshallah. So yeah, Sheikh Testify, tell us why arguments from silence aren't definitive.
But at best, it's a pretty precarious way to argue. But why is that? Well, the argument assumes that we know that if the fact in question were true, the author in question surely would have noticed it, mentioned it, and that the record of it would have survived to us living in the present day. But often, our expectations and reality are two very different things. Exactly how reliable is our intuition at predicting whether a writer would mention a fact or event that did really happen? As it turns out, not that great. By looking at some examples, I think you will see that we tend to vastly overestimate ourselves. Let's take a look. Neither Herodotus nor Thucydides provide any report of Rome or the Romans in their histories of ancient Greece. That seems to be quite the oversight. In Thucydides' history, Socrates isn't mentioned. This is despite the fact that he may have been considered one of the most important characters in Athens during the 20 years covered in his work. Thucydides himself doesn't appear in Aristotle or Xenophon. We have to wait about 250 years for Polybius to mention Thucydides. In 2 long letters to Tacitus, Pliny the Younger describes the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in great detail. However, quite weirdly, he doesn't mention the destruction of the cities of Herculaneum or Pompeii. 60,000 people estimated probably died. Suetonius, Hadrian's secretary, also discusses Vesuvius but neglects to refer to the destruction of these towns. Dio Cassius named them about a century after Pliny, and he wasn't an eyewitness and probably never even spoke to one. In 41 AD, Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome. Both Jewish writers Josephus and Philo fail to mention this despite both of them preserving tons of Jewish history. We only find this event in the Book of Acts and Suetonius. In his detailed biography of Constantine, the church historian Eusebius glaringly fails to mention the death of Constantine's son Crispus and his wife Fausta. Shakespeare and Francis Bacon were near contemporaries. Both were ridiculously prolific writers, but neither acknowledged the other in any of their writings that we have recorded. The Civil War general, U.S. Grant, says absolutely nothing about the Emancipation Proclamation despite keeping an extensive diary. Are you beginning to see the problem yet? But let's
Yes, Testify. We are beginning to see the problem, and if you're consistent with how much of a lowly view you have of arguments from silence, then you wouldn't be making such trash videos. Anyways, let's continue Testify's original video, and I'll give my response now to Testify's very weak critique of Islam.
The period of 40 AD and 600 AD is between the lives of Jesus and Muhammad. Here are a few things that Islam teaches. Number 1, true followers of Allah believe the one simple message: Allah is one, worship Him alone, keep His laws. Number 2, Jesus was a true prophet of God. a man, not the Son of God, not divine, who taught the one simple message. Number 3, Jesus was authenticated by his virgin birth in miracles. Number 4, Jesus wasn't executed by the Jews and Romans. Keep those in mind as we work through the candidates for the true followers of Allah.
The last point actually wouldn't be a definitive point that Jesus, peace be upon him, or his disciples would have been teaching. The fact that Jesus, peace upon him, wasn't crucified wouldn't be considered such a fundamental belief. And Ibn Taymiyyah agrees with me on this, saying that it's possible that the disciples and the earliest followers of Jesus, peace be upon him, wouldn't be undermined in their belief if they believed that Jesus, peace be upon him, was crucified. The other 3 points are fundamental and Jesus would have preached. Someone who fulfills these 3 criteria is the Ebionites. You can find a group of Ebionites believing God is one, believing to keep God's laws in the Old Testament, as well as that Jesus was a prophet, the Messiah, was born through a virgin, and performed many miracles.
Basically 4 categories of people that we can look at. Category 1, the pagans and other religions of the world. They don't believe the one simple message. They believe in many gods. Belief in one God is extremely rare outside of the descendants of Abraham. For example, it appeared very briefly in Egypt around the 14th century BC, and that's about it. True followers of Allah don't believe in many gods, so they're out. Number 2, followers of Judaism. But they reject Jesus, and so they reject a true prophet of God. They say that Jesus wasn't a true prophet, didn't do any real miracles, and was executed. His execution is affirmed in the Talmud. True followers of Allah don't reject Allah's messengers, so they're out too. Number 3, Orthodox Christians. They believe that Jesus was the divine Son of God who was crucified and raised from the dead. True followers of Allah don't believe that a messenger of God is divine, so they're out too. Number 4, there were non-Orthodox groups of Christians too. Some of them believe that Jesus wasn't crucified, which might make them seem promising. Are these the true followers of God? No, because they're Gnostics, and Gnostics believe that the creator of the world is evil. Jesus was purely a spiritual being, and he wasn't crucified because he literally didn't have a body to kill in the first place. True followers of Allah don't believe that the creator of this world is evil, so they're definitely out. The best candidate left over is the Ebionites. They're a small sect from the 2nd century, and we only know a little bit about them because Christians published criticisms about their beliefs. The information that we have, though, is pretty patchy according to scholars.
The fact that the only source we have regarding Ebionite beliefs comes through the early church fathers who considered them to be heretics, as well as the fact that Testify himself already admits that the information isn't conclusive. How then can you make a convincing argument from silence here?
But could they truly be the real followers of Allah? Absolutely not. Some of them were actually Gnostics, and others of them rejected Jesus' virgin birth. They created their own version of Jesus and rejected the real Jesus. True followers of Allah don't reject Allah's messengers, so they're also out.
Wait, not so fast there, Testify. You tried to pull a fast one on your fans.
Naughty, you teasing me, you naughty.
The thing is here, the Ebionites weren't a monolith, meaning they didn't have a consensus view on many things. They were very diverse. And as your early church themselves admit, there was a group among them that did affirm the virgin birth. Man, you just got caught out.
Oh! Somebody! Oh! He needs some milk!
We have from Origen of Alexandria mentioning this in the 2nd to 3rd century. There was a group among them that did reject the virgin birth, but others who didn't. Then we have Eusebius, known as the father of church history, who's a source for much of the early church's history, says the exact same thing as Origen. Knowing that there's a group here that don't reject the virgin birth and affirm the oneness of Allah and meet all the requirements I said before, then they fit the criteria that you're asking for. And this is even if I grant you that we should find evidence for this in history. Why do I need to grant that? Why do I need to grant this argument from silence isn't rubbish? But even if I do, your argument still doesn't follow, and this requires someone delving into this topic to realize your deception.
And so that's it. That's everybody. Jews, Christians of various kinds, Orthodox and unorthodox, and everyone else. Which means that Islam has failed the challenge. there is a 5-century long gap in human history right before the final prophet of God, in which there is literally no one that a Muslim can identify as a true follower of Allah. If you disagree, then go ahead and name someone. But here's the deal. You can't. They don't exist. What does this show? That the Muslim version of history is absolute nonsense.
Okay, so just to summarize the response now, Testify is using his own self-admitted weak type of argumentation, being an argument from silence, to make such a bold claim. Secondly, we even have remnants of the Islamic conception and Islamic beliefs that would have been left by Jesus, peace be upon him, being affirmed by the Ebionites. If you guys want to see more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go the extra step, then my GoFundMe link and Patreon will be put down below. Thank you guys for watching, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
やれやれ。黒棺が見たい。